Early in the week, I was so busy with holiday happenings and also getting over a cold that while my husband was out running errands, I asked him to grab one of those pre-made meals from Costco. And no offense to Costco, but it was not good at all. In fact, we really couldn't even eat it. So we are skipping that and getting back to what we know best, and that is making easy scratch-made meals. I am starting with a very simple chicken and veggie skillet meal. So first I'm just frying up some bacon and then I'm taking it out of the skillet. And ideally this would go on a paper towel line plate, but it turns out I only had one little rectangle of a paper towel left. But I'm letting that drain on a plate while I prepare the veggies. I'm using Brussels sprouts and sweet potatoes because that is what's seasonal and what is the best price, but you can use any vegetables that you have on hand or that you can find at a good price at your local grocery store. Skillet meals are really useful because there is minimal cleanup required. I also really like one pot meals. I actually posted a one pot meal video on YouTube a few weeks ago. I will leave a link for that below in the description box. I found that often for skillet meals though, I do have to cook one ingredient and then take it out. Like in this case, I had to cook the bacon and take it out, and you'll see I do that again in the following two recipes later in this video. Whereas with one pot meals, I don't really have to do that, but sometimes I do like to make skillet meals over one pot meals because it does create a little bit of a different flavor, and they're also really easy to batch cook, as you will see I did today. Now here I am chopping up some chicken, and one of the tricks to making a good skillet meal that cooks quickly is to make sure that the protein is cut up in bite-sized pieces. If you're waiting for that whole chicken breast to cook, that can take a really long time on the stovetop. So if you cube it up and get it in bite-sized pieces that are about the same size as the veggies, it cooks a little bit easier. And when you go to eat it, you can fit a little bit of sweet potato, Brussels sprout, and chicken all in one forkful, which makes for a delicious bite of food. When I make skillet meals like this, I do not wipe out the pan in between. I see a lot of recipes call for that. So I am cooking this chicken right in that bacon grease. Now, if your bacon has a lot of fat that rendered, you might want to take some of it out, but I am using that bacon fat and even some of those little burn bits to season the chicken. Once the chicken is close to being done, I'd say around like 150, 155 degrees Fahrenheit, I am pushing it over to one side of the skillet and adding the veggies so then they can cook together. That way you don't have to worry about taking the chicken out because it's going to overcook or anything like that. So it's just a little bit easier and creates a little less cleanup. And then I am seasoning this with a little bit of freeze-dried onion powder, some garlic powder, salt and pepper. Really, you can use any seasonings that you want. And now I am pouring in, I'd say maybe a half a cup to a cup of broth. Now here's the deal with adding broth to Brussels sprouts. It does make them very soft. So if you like a crispy Brussels sprout, I would not do this. I would just use a different vegetable altogether. The broth really helps this cook quickly, but it does make for soft vegetables, which I actually really love. I let that cook in the broth for about 10 minutes or so, and then I took the lid off and just let that broth cook all the way down. And then I'm adding in some of that bacon. I chopped it up like little bacon bits and a sprinkle of dried cranberries. And this was a really delicious and super easy skillet meal. We ate this for dinner. And then also this morning, my husband actually ate this for breakfast with the fried egg over it. And he said it was delicious like that. So this is really versatile for a number of different meals. And if you double up, then you can have plenty for leftovers. Now, the thing I like about skillet meals is once you get things going, your kitchen is already prepared for more skillet meals. So I have one cutting board ready for vegetables. I have another cutting board ready for meat. I have separate knives, one that I use for chopping vegetables, one that I use for chopping meat. So it makes it pretty easy to batch prep. And really, I guess you could do this for any type of meal, but if I have skillet meals going, I just like to stick with that same theme for the day. Here I am making a smoked Polish sausage and veggie skillet meal. Now, I tend to not get a whole lot of smoked meats like this, but on a busy week like this, I do like to get things like that because they're just really easy to deal with. And it's also just a good reminder that not everything has to be 100% scratch made all the time. Sometimes you just got to go grab something from the store, chop it up, and throw it in a skillet. So here I am just frying that up in the skillet until it's nice and brown and and golden. And then you can see the skillet is really dark here. That is called fond and it is flavor. Do not wipe that out. I threw in some quartered red potatoes and then I cooked them for a minute, and then I deglazed the pan with some chicken broth, and I'm using that wood spatula to scrape that fond off the bottom of the pot because that adds so much depth of flavor. Here I'm using my stainless steel skillet, so deglazing isn't really that complicated. You can just throw the liquid in. You can deglaze cast iron, which I do all the time. It's not quite as cut and dry as deglazing stainless steel because you have to make sure that that liquid is room temperature or warmer. I have a full blog post over on my blog at moonandmagnolia.com about how to deglaze cast iron. I'll leave a link for that in the description box below. But essentially here I have just deglazed the pan, added some potatoes and green beans, a little bit of broth like I did in the last recipe, and let that cook down. And one thing about skillet meals I like to try to do is stick with the same cooking methods for each one, especially if I'm batch prepping, because that takes a lot of thinking out of it and I can kind of get on autopilot. So essentially, this is the exact same recipe as the chicken skillet meal earlier in this video, but with different ingredients. If you are into batch prepping meals and you like skillet meals, it is really helpful to have two skillets. I use a Lodge 13¼ inch cast iron skillet, and then I also have my all-clad stainless steel skillet. And honestly, I use my cast iron skillet almost all of the time, but I do like having two for batch cooking days, especially because it just keeps the flow and the rhythm going. Last up on the skillet meal menu is a garlic chicken gnocchi. And when I was editing this video, I realized that I should have really just chopped this chicken when I chopped the chicken for the very first recipe, because that's like rule number one of meal prep. Get everything chopped up and ready to go first. But I guess I just wasn't thinking, but next time I'll make sure to do that. I have made a lot of variations of this recipe on YouTube. This is a regular old cream sauce, which I think is one of the most important things a scratch cook should know how to make, because if you can make a cream sauce, you can make anything delicious. So first I just cooked up that cube chicken and now I'm putting it onto a plate. And then I am adding in the garlic, and that's probably like 6 or 7 cloves. This is a really garlicky dish, so use as much as you'd like, and just saute it until it is aromatic. If it burns, it will ruin your dish. So the moment you can smell it, deglaze your pan with some chicken broth. I often use white wine for this, but I did not have any white wine to use and I already had an open box of chicken broth. So really, you can deglaze this with anything you have on hand. Then I added in a box of store-bought potato gnocchi, a little more broth, and let it cook until it's about halfway cooked. And now I am adding in some heavy cream and then letting the gnocchi cook in that broth and cream mixture. And once the gnocchi is nice and tender, I'm simply just putting the chicken in, adding some Parmesan cheese. This would have been really good with some of that bacon. I really dropped the ball at the end of the day here with this one because I should have chopped the chicken and I should have made extra bacon for this. But either way, it was delicious. I think what's most important about skillet meals is don't overcomplicate them. Just cook some protein, get some veggies or a pasta or both in there, and stick with what you know. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to subscribe and like this video, and don't forget to sign up for the email list. When you join, I will send you all of my recipes, blogs, tutorials, videos, and more directly to your inbox. Thank you so much for stopping by today. I hope you are having a wonderful holiday season, and I'll see you again next time.